So, I'm planning a trip with your grandparents, Anson. How about you? Do you have any plans?
I called my son Anson after we were invited on a vacation by my in-laws.
I have practice. You all should go and have fun. But isn't this trip a bit out of the ordinary? You okay, Mom?
I'll manage. I'll bring you back a souvenir, so work hard at your practice.
Anson, under my influence, has always been into marathon running. He even got into college on a running scholarship. He studies at a university that isn't too far, but he stays in the dormitory to save commuting time and only comes home during long holidays. I knew he couldn't join the trip, but I thought I should at least ask him. His response was exactly what I anticipated. My name is Flora, a 46-year-old working woman. My husband Steve is 4 years older than me and was once my boss. He is a competent man, and I respect him. Though after our marriage and the birth of our son, we built a happy family. Yet somewhere along the way, our relationship began to break down. Is the root cause my husband's parents, especially his mother, who had a problem with me from the moment we got married and has been bullying me ever since. However, in the beginning, Steve would stand up for me, and because we lived far away from his parents, we seldom met them and managed to get by. But when our son, who loves marathoning, wanted to attend a high school near my in-laws, things changed. The reason he got into running was me. I actually used to run marathons and still do occasionally. It made me happy to see him take an interest in running, just like me. So I convinced Steve to move closer to the high school my son wanted to attend. Steve applied for a transfer at work for our son's sake, and we moved.
I'll get the rental car tomorrow morning and pick up my parents on your way back.
Huh. Why am I the one renting the car? What are you going to do?
I'm tired from work, so I'll sleep until the last minute. Once you pick up my parents, come back, and I take over from there. It's in the same direction as our destination anyway.
I could understand what he was saying, but if anything, I was more exhausted. Despite working similar hours, I was the one taking care of all the housework. When I think about it, we used to split the household chores equally. However, ever since we moved closer to his parents, they've been visiting us frequently. But when his mother saw Steve doing housework, she vehemently opposed it. Housework is the wife's job. It's not something the breadwinner should do, isn't that right, Flora? Overwhelmed by her intensity, I initially nodded, but this continued until Steve eventually stopped doing anything around the house. Overwhelmed by her intensity, I initially nodded in agreement. This continued until Steve eventually stopped doing anything around the house. It was partly Steve's fault, but I believe the main cause was his mother. Moreover, Steve started to echo his mother's sentiment, saying, "I am the breadwinner." Every now and then, by that time, it was too late for me to correct the situation, and I didn't even feel like trying anymore. Steve changed drastically over the past few years. His work performance seemed to have declined, and he frequently vented his frustrations on me. However, I realized that arguing back was more trouble than it was worth. So I decided to simply accept things as they are. That's the least stressful way for me to live. There were times I considered getting a divorce. That's himself. But when it came time for our son's college recommendation, I feared it could disadvantage him if we were a single-parent family. So I couldn't go through with the divorce. Instead, I tricked peace in mind into believing I was taking care of a dog, not a person, and surprisingly, it did relieve some of my stress. So I began to feel like it wasn't worth expending my energy on getting a divorce. And that's how I've arrived at where I am today. The reason I agreed to join this trip was because it was to a resort that I absolutely love. I knew I could thoroughly enjoy myself, even if I ended up doing things alone. Heck, I was even ready to do things separately from my in-laws and husband. Perhaps I was invited mainly because they needed someone to share the driving. But both my husband and my father-in-law can drive, so it'll work out one way or another anyway. I played along with the notion that our pampered pooch was being demanding again, went to get the rental car as my husband instructed, and headed to my in-laws' place. Laura, you're late. See, at the car for today, you should have rented a bigger one. Well, it's better than your tiny car at least. The car we usually use is the one I bought. Since I drive to work, I assumed I would be the primary user, and I paid for it myself. We don't go out of town often, and I thought a small car would be just fine. Plus, I loved its interior design and color. So I bought it, and yet my husband would take it without asking and even let his parents ride in it. What's more, my in-laws complain about the car being small and looked down on me as if I could only afford a small car. I thought they could just use father-in-law's car for the trip. Father-in-law, however, didn't like others driving his but also didn't want to drive it himself for the entire trip. So we ended up renting a car. Even so, I wasn't consulted about any of this. I just found out that I would be the one to pick up a tweet, the rental car, and drive it, and that they'd be in the car. And they'd be in the back seat driving the whole time. It made me want to tell them to drive themselves. In a word, they are tiresome. In the end, my husband, who'd said he would take turns driving, slept the entire time. Father-in-law didn't want to drive unless it was his own car, so he ended up driving all the way to our destination. Inside the car with my husband asleep, Father-in-law kept criticizing my driving. He would say things like, "You could have turned left there," even though the oncoming car was obviously approaching. Or why didn't you go, even though you knew the light was turning red? It was nothing but unnecessary stress. My mother-in-law joined in, saying, "Flora, your driving is as bad as ever." I didn't to be criticized by my mother-in-law, who can't even drive, and at least I'm better than father-in-law, who, as far as I know, has crashed his car at least 5 times. Despite being told he should surrender his license before causing a major accident, father-in-law keeps insisting it was just bad luck and that he is a good driver, so everything will be fine. Well, I didn't want to ride in a car driven by father-in-law anyway. I don't mind driving, but I'd appreciate it if they could stop interfering all the time. Upon reaching our destination, my husband finally woke up. Since we had been in the car all day and were tired, we followed my in-laws' wish to spend the day relaxing in the hotel. So we didn't go out. I enjoyed myself by swimming in the pool and exploring the hotel. In its own way, it was a fulfilling time. After having dinner and going to the spa, I returned to find my husband already asleep. I didn't know what my in-laws were doing in the next room, but they were probably asleep too. I had a beer and reached the room before crawling into bed. Actually, I woke up in the fresh morning air. My husband was still asleep, and with some time until breakfast, I decided to take a morning stroll. But when I came back, the unthinkable had happened. Upon entering the room, my husband was nowhere to be found. Shocked, I scanned the room. His luggage was also missing. I stepped out and rang the doorbell to my in-laws' room next door, but there was no answer. When I went to the front desk to inquire, I was told my husband and in-laws had already finished breakfast. Though they had told me breakfast was at 8:30, it seems they actually reserved it an hour earlier, exactly when I had gone for my walk. And on top of that, I was left to check out. Did that mean mother-in-law's offer to pay for our stay was a lie? But with no other option, I paid for both rooms and left the hotel, of course. There was no car. As I was pondering what to do next, my cell phone rang. It was my mother-in-law.
Where are you now?
When I asked that, my mother-in-law started laughing. We thought we'd spend some quality time as a family since we're on vacation. Oh, is that so?
Well then, why didn't you just come as 3 from the start instead of leaving me behind?
Well, you wanted to come here, didn't you, Flora? That's why we brought you along. I remembered a while back mentioning how I wanted to visit this resort while watching TV with my husband. Educator, is that what he remembered? Usually, it would be nice if he remembered what I casually said. But this time, it was used just to annoy me. Moreover, I was the one who did most of the driving to get here. Why do I have to hear that I was brought here by my mother-in-law, who never drove nor paid? You see, I was past the point of anger and could only sigh. All right then, we'll go sightseeing as a family and head home first. You do some sightseeing too, Flora, and come back. We don't know how you'll get back, but you're good at marathons, aren't you? Just run back. At my mother-in-law's mocking laughter, my anger exploded.
What? Do your own laundry?
Good morning. You want to come here, didn't you? Take it easy today. But remember, as there's laundry from the trip to be done, make sure you wash it by tomorrow morning.
What? Do your own laundry? Oh right, the breadwinner. But don't worry, this is the last time we'll see each other. Well, all you've really seen of me is me sleeping.
Hey, that's no way to talk. The breadwinner, telling you to take it easy today. You should be saying thank you. What do you mean?
What?
You need to come home today. There's laundry and house cleaning to be done.
Yeah, that's why I'm not going back.
Be time out, and
His voice was shaken, and with that, I said, I'm getting a divorce. You told me half a year ago, didn't you, that you met your soulmate, your childhood friend, and you were going to marry her? You're reunited when she moved back to your hometown, right? The childhood friend who had divorced. Remember, you showed me the divorce papers back then. That was about 6 months ago. I confronted my husband because something felt off, and he came clean. He met his childhood friend and decided she was his soulmate. He wanted to divorce me and marry her. She had a middle school-age child and was struggling as a single mother, and he wanted to support her. Truthfully, I had lost my feelings for my husband, but I wasn't quite ready to say, okay, let's get a divorce. He gave me the pre-filled divorce papers, but I didn't agree to divorce. We didn't speak for a few days after that, but when I stopped doing the household chores, he was in a bind. A few days later, he said, forget about what I said before. Well, I couldn't just forget it, and I started gathering evidence of his infidelity.
Could it be Steve planned this trip to get on my good side? And so the conversation happened about 3 months ago. It was right after you quit your job.
At my words, surprised voices from my in-laws on the other end of the speakerphone echoed. This must have been the first time they heard about their son quitting his job.
When you said you were quitting your job, I told you it would be hard to get a new one, and I disagreed with your reason. You said that you were an excellent worker and would find a new job right away, but you only found a part-time job. I wonder when you'll find a proper job.
I took the opportunity to spill everything while he was staying quiet. I'd been coping with stress by imagining you as a dog, but then I thought I might as well get an actual dog. Some of my in-laws were calling my name in shock, and my husband was trying to say something, but I cut the call without paying any attention. I decided to enjoy sightseeing before heading home. When I explained the situation over the phone to my son, he said, see, I told you, well, if you're divorcing, and it's fine. Even though I returned from the trip, I didn't go home. In fact, I had been keeping my and Anson's belongings in a self-storage, ready for any situation. At Choitekil, I had the bare necessities with me, so I dragged my suitcase to a real estate agency. The sales representative, who had a professional relationship with me, was there to greet me. She was a woman of my generation, easy to talk to, and we'd hit it off and had drinks together a few times. Over drinks, I complained about my husband and in-laws and asked her to always keep an eye on available properties, just in case. That day, I signed a contract. With my own place secured, I felt relieved and decided to submit the divorce papers at the city hall. The divorce was granted without any issue. Extended message truncated. Please see the original input for complete data.
Hello, I started. The divorce papers have been accepted. We are now officially strangers.
At that, my husband's panicked voice echoed in the phone.
They're serious about the divorce. I broke up with her. Now there's only you, Flora. You didn't like me looking at other women, right? Now I'm only looking at you, so come back without worries.
But all I felt for his words was revulsion.
Huh. What are you talking about? I never intended to please you in the first place, and you didn't break up with her, did you? You were dumped because you couldn't find a job and you had no money, right?
It turned out that my husband's mistress was the friend of the sales rep who had introduced us to our new place. Talk about a small world. She had been listening to complaints about my husband from the mistress, who claimed to be his current girlfriend. And apparently, after he quit his job and started working part-time, she saw no point in being with him and broke up.
But a fling is a fling. I'm definitely going to demand compensation.
That's right. Even if they've broken up now, the fact remains that you cheated and there's evidence.
Compensation, I told you. We broke up, now there's on floor.
I can only side this point.
So you're saying that now that you're single, you're thinking of having another affair. I don't care what you do, but I'm done being exploited. You didn't even notice that your stuff at home was missing because you didn't care, did you? I'm not going back. So throw away what you don't need.
With that, I hung up the phone. Even after that, my ex-husband kept calling me, and even my former in-laws reached out. But of course, I'm never going back to that house. My ex-husband still hasn't found a job, can't pay the rent, and has moved back in with his parents. My ex-father-in-law is still driving dangerously and recently crashed into a neighbor's fence with my ex-mother-in-law in the car. Fortunately, no one else was injured, but they didn't have property insurance and had to borrow money to cover the repair costs. Also, all of this was written in emails that my ex-husband kept sending me on his own. I find his misfortune slightly amusing. I don't reply, but I haven't blocked his emails either, just quietly enjoying the show. Since I moved to a pet-friendly property, I started keeping a small dog and realized that I enjoy taking care of a dog more than taking care of people. My son, worried about me being alone, has started coming over on weekends, a change from his previous habit of only visiting on long holidays. Says take the twins, I'm living a fulfilling life every day. Maybe this weekend I'll go back to that resort town for the first time in a while. That the store turns to chaos, but who cares? Lo?
Next customer, please come this way.
The cash registers were getting crowded, so I quickly opened the one next to me and guided customers. After a while, the congestion was resolved, and I returned to stocking shelves.
Mary, you're amazing for being able to ring up customers so quickly.
The person who spoke to me was another part-time employee. In the supermarket, there are high school students and many people of the same age group as me, so I enjoy working here. My name is Mary. As a 45-year-old part-time housewife, I've been working at this part-time supermarket for about 10 years. When my child entered elementary school, I decided to find a job and applied for a part-time position at a local supermarket that was recruiting. There are many housewives like me, and the manager is also a parent, so it's a good environment that understands child-rearing. I've been working here for 10 years. Before I knew it, I became one of the oldest part-timers. There are more familiar faces among the customers, and many people greet me, and I get along well with other part-timers and part-time high school students. However, I never expected that something like this would happen. One day, we were told that our manager, who we all appreciated, was being transferred, and we were all disappointed. But the manager was transferred to the headquarters, which seemed like a promotion route. He was competent, so it was inevitable. Although it was a shame, we all congratulated him on his promotion and sent him off. The next manager was from the headquarters and did not know much about the field. No one mentioned it, but being a manager from the headquarters seemed like a demotion. He was nagging and incompetent. And the atmosphere in the store deteriorated. According to other part-timers, the president's wife seems to favor young, handsome managers. The manager probably thought that he could benefit from being liked by the president's wife. I often saw him talking to her. The new manager's reputation was bad, but the president's wife was the worst. She complained about every part-timer. However, she up to male employees and high school boys working part-time with a sweet voice. Although we part-timers were dissatisfied, no one dared to complain to the president's wife. Eventually, some part-time housewives and student part-timers started quitting. Just as I started considering looking for another part-time job, I became the target of the president's wife.
You've been working at the store for a long time, right? How about your child? Already a college student. Which college?
I was surprised to be asked such a question suddenly.
Yes, I've been working here since the previous manager.
I didn't want to talk about my child, so I tried to dodge the question. Then the president's wife said this.
You look incompetent. You probably didn't even go to a decent college, did you?
That remark hit me in the heart, but just then, the register area got crowded, so I nodded to the president's wife and quickly got in line. Actually, I only graduated from middle school. I was bullied in high school, tried my best to hang in there, but eventually couldn't go anymore and quit during the summer of my 3rd year. Since then, I've been living as a part-timer, met my husband at a part-time job, got married, and lived in a world completely unrelated to educational background. But the president's wife seems to be the complete opposite of me. She brags about being a graduate of a prestigious university, even when nobody is listening. But for some reason, she stubbornly refuses to mention the name of the university. I thought it was strange, but since I wasn't particularly interested, I always let it slide. The president's wife probably had a preconception that housewives working part-time at a supermarket don't have high educational backgrounds. In fact, I once heard her talking about it with the store manager. A ton to 6 seals the polyer grease. The next day, as I was working as usual, the president's wife came to the store again for some reason.
Excuse me?
I looked up when the president's wife addressed me. She looked down on me and laughed, as if something was funny. Somehow controlling my irritated emotions, the president's wife opened her mouth.
You're a middle school graduate, aren't you? I didn't think you went to college, but I never thought you were just a middle school graduate. It's amazing that you can work with that kind of educational background.
I wondered where she heard that from and remembered that yesterday, the store manager was checking part-timers' resumes in the office. I thought the manager should know about the employees, but I guess that information went to the president's wife. Knowing that I was a middle school graduate, the president's wife told other employees about it for some reason. Frankly, it was annoying. I had no intention of faking my education, but I couldn't understand the nerve of someone who would go around saying that I was a middle school graduate. My part-time colleagues didn't seem to care and acted as usual, but since then, the president's wife would always bring up that I was a middle school graduate.
Maybe you wouldn't understand since you're a middle school graduate, so at least do some cleaning.
That was the president's wife's catchphrase. I don't have to work here to be told things like that. That's what I started to think. A few days later, the president's wife appeared at the store again. Just seeing her made me irritated. As I sighed and tried to walk past her, she was smirking at the cardboard box storage area. It was a place where we didn't go because the supplier would come to pick up the boxes. But for some reason, the president's wife seemed to be trying to make me clean it up on purpose. So
She said, people like you should be covered in garbage. You bottom-dwelling middle school graduates are just salary thieves.
this was the back room away from the customer's eyes. I had always been able to bear it because I was usually approached in the sales area, but that day I couldn't hold back my pent-up anger.
I said, "Excuse me, but I think I'm working for the salary I'm getting. I'm working properly and education doesn't matter, right?"
The president's wife looked a little surprised, perhaps not expecting to be talked back to. Why don't you be a little helpful to the store if you're here? We never know what you're doing here. Are you just here to look down on us? You must have a lot of free time. The president's wife glared at me.
She said, who, unlike a lowlife like you, I'm busy. I'm taking time out of my busy schedule to come to this store.
Alexa calmly stated this. The president's wife's face turned bright red with anger.
She said, just by being here, I make this store more lively, don't I? You should be more grateful.
I couldn't help but laugh at her words.
Did you really think that? None of us employees or customers think that way. It's interesting how there are people who have educational backgrounds but are useless in the field. I vented all the resentment I had been harboring from being looked down on.
Not just by being here, I make the store more lively, don't I? You should be more grateful. She could only come up with cliched retorts. Do you think you can work here after talking to me like that?
So I responded without hesitation, then I'll quit. The president's wife laughed at me mockingly. It'll save on our labor costs. I returned the smile and said, yes, that's right, good for you. I then headed to the locker room. But when I entered the locker room, the part-timer who'd passed by the scene earlier was there. I told her everything that had happened.
Are you quitting?
She was sad because we had been working part-time together for years. Ever since the manager changed, it hasn't been fun, and it's like we're only working out of obligation. Right? Many people have quit, but they don't hire more staff because it's a waste of labor costs. So our workload keeps increasing. I can't do it anymore. I left the locker room and went to where the manager and president and his wife were talking. Then that's a quick story. Seeing me, the president's wife laughed.
I heard that the junior high school graduate is quitting here. I wonder if there's a place for a junior high school graduate to work.
So I told them off. Even if I have nowhere else to work, I won't come back here. I'll return the uniform next week. Thank you for everything. I felt strangely refreshed as I left the supermarket. The following week, when I went to return my uniform, the store was noisy. The manager seemed to be getting scolded by several customers. There seemed to be a commotion near the cash register. Actually, there was a mistake in the transaction. The customer's anger seemed extraordinary. However, there was nothing I could do since I had already quit. So I went to the office to leave my uniform. As I approached the office, I heard the president's wife's voice. Reluctantly, I opened the door and saw the former manager there as well. As retained, I opened the door and saw the former manager there as well.
And takes a manager.
Even though he was now working at the headquarters and not as the manager, I accidentally called him that out of habit. The former manager seemed to have been talking to the president's wife, but she quickly left the office.
What happened at the register? There seemed to be some trouble.
The former store manager tells me that there have been a series of complaints at this store lately. It seems that after I quit, other part-timers and part-time students all decided to quit at once. The manager was apparently working on the sales floor, but he didn't know how to stock shelves or operate the register, so he received complaints from customers. Today's incident involved the president's wife who was talking to a male employee on the sales floor, and a customer mistook her for an employee and asked her a question. I don't know anything about that. The president's wife apparently brushed the customer off. The manager then appeared and accidentally revealed that she was the president's wife, making the situation worse and causing more complaints, although the register area became very crowded. At this time, all the part-timers had quit, so employees and the manager who don't usually work at the register had to do so. And there were many mistakes. The register was so slow that customers started getting irritated, and it seemed the manager was being scolded. He then told me that he heard that the president's wife did not graduate from college. He didn't know the details, but had heard she was a high school graduate. So what was the educational condescension about? Could it be that the president's wife is looking down on people with the delusion that she is highly educated? That made her seem even more dangerous. 2 weeks later, the supermarket where I used to work was deserted. It was unusual for so few customers to be there at this time.
Mary, would you like to work there?
It seems an employee the former manager had trained was being promoted to the new store manager. I could trust that person. I nodded and contacted my former part-time friends. When my part-time job at the new store was confirmed, some of my former part-time friends were there too, which made me feel relieved. The manager was understanding, and I felt like I could get along well with the other employees and new part-timers. The new store tried something different, handling local side dishes and bread, which was well received by customers. I began to see familiar faces from the previous store, and the new store had a successful start. According to the employees, the old store was very quiet, and the manager was scolded quite a bit at the head office meetings. Many people quit soon after being hired as part-timers, and there was always a shortage of staff. I found a new part-time job quickly, and since I was able to work happily like before, I thought everything was settled. However, about a month after starting work at the news store, the president's wife appeared before me. Oh, she's the president's wife, so it wouldn't be strange for her to be at any store, but she seemed to have come specifically to see me.
I heard a junior high school dropout is working at our store again, so I came to check.
I could only sigh.
What's wrong? I'm not doing anything bad.
Do you realize that because of you, the other store is in big trouble now?
Why is it my fault?
I didn't do anything wrong. Rather, isn't the president's wife the one committing power harassment?
You made all the other employees quit, didn't you?
The president's wife suddenly got angry. It's completely unreasonable. The part-timer and the manager who used to work at the previous store noticed me and tried to help, but I stopped them.
Is the people at Prison Griel, a middle school graduate, can't make all the employees quit? Why not ask them why they quit? Well, you can figure it out without asking.
The part-timers nodded in agreement with my words.
Shall I tell you if you don't understand? You look down on us because of our educational background, and the manager doesn't understand anything, only talks. No one wants to work part-time while experiencing power harassment.
That's when I said that, the president's wife raised her voice again.
Power harassment. Are you trying to frame me without any evidence?
The moment the president's wife tried to grab me, the manager intervened.
Can you please stop doing that to our part-timers?
The manager's position would be compromised by saying such a thing to the president's wife. I was about to say I'm fine, but the manager said firmly, I am the manager of this store and it's my job to protect the employees. I'll fulfill my role whether you're the president's wife or not. Then applause came from the other part-timers. I took a deep breath, took out my smartphone and said, I have evidence of power harassment.
The president's wife glared at me.
I played a video. It showed the president's wife yelling at another part-timer at the previous store for no reason, and it wasn't just one or two instances. That president's wife's face changed color, then the other part-timers came forward. That among them was a video of me being insulted for being a middle school graduate. At that time, we had conspired to collect evidence if anyone was experiencing power harassment from the president's wife. We didn't go so far as to file a lawsuit, but the videos were shared among part-time friends, so we had several at hand.
Top manager, we're going to sue her.
When I said that, the other part-timers and the manager nodded. Actually, the president's wife was furious with the manager.
What's wrong with you? Do you think it's okay to say that to me? You're fired. Fired.
Was hearing that, I looked at the president's wife and laughed. Oh, I recorded that too, so we'll protect the manager who protected us. Hearing this, the president's wife changed her expression again and turned on her heels. It seems she intended to escape. I called out to her back.
There are more important things than education, right? Sometimes your humanity is more important when you enter society. Are you focusing on people's education because you have a complex about it?
The president's wife turned around and said, How did you know that? It seems she had inadvertently admitted it. I laughed. The other employees laughed, and the president's wife, Realizing herself, friction left at a speed I'd never seen before. After that, we decided to really sue the president's wife. We had videos taken by the part-timers and the manager. We had videos taken by part-timers, and the manager, who had been favored by the president's wife, admitted that he had been covering up her power harassment for his own safety. So we had solid evidence the president's wife couldn't escape, and we were able to receive compensation. Then word spread to other stores, and many similar complaints were raised. The president's wife was sued for compensation, and the president, who found out about her behavior for the first time, was furious and told her to pay it back by working. It is a locally owned supermarket, so the president and his wife's house is also local. When I witnessed the president's wife working angrily at a nearby drugstore, I couldn't help but laugh. Since then, we have been working hard today under a trustworthy manager. Then I made a decision when I called all their families out. What are you touching? You're so impatient.
Isn't that adorable? A son will always love his mom, no matter how old he gets.
In the otherwise quiet house, only the bathroom was abuzz. Without a doubt, it was my mother and my husband in there. The third person was undeniably my mother-in-law. Their excitement was mounting on the other side of that door. If I were to speak up now, would my voice, which shouldn't be here, reach them? My name is Abby, but by some accounts, I'm a career woman. Even after marriage, I've continued to work hard, and now at 39, I hold a responsible position. As it is complete in my stead, the house husband role is filled by my husband, John, who is 10 years younger and currently works from home. As our daughter Ellie grows up, John has steadily become a better cook, and moreover, he has become quite the expert in childcare. And thanks to him, Ellie, now 5 years old, has grown into a lively girl who loves playing outdoors. Her house is close to my in-law's place. It was initially a rental owned by my father-in-law. When the previous tenants moved out, he refurbished it into a beautiful standalone home. Gratefully, he gave it to our family as a wedding gift. We also have my sister-in-law's family living nearby. They have a child of the same age as Ellie, and we enjoy a close-knit family relationship. Additionally, John has a good relationship with his mother, while I've always had a tough relationship with my mother. I'd always admired their healthy parent-child relationship, even before we got married. Still, the reason I cannot warm up to my own mother is probably because I can't accept her audacious habit of using my cosmetics without my permission. Our relationship with my parents, who live within biking distance in the next town, is somewhat lukewarm. Our relationship with my parents, who live in the next town, is somewhat lukewarm. Our peaceful daily life was shattered due to an incident that happened on a public holiday. That day, I woke up feeling sluggish, but since I had no fever, I thought I was just tired and went to work as usual. While we are off on weekends, we work on public holidays. It is only with the support of my family that I am able to continue this way of working. I rested a little in the company's break room and then returned home. I think it was a little past 2 p.m. when I arrived. And so, I called out when I opened the front door, but there was no reply from either Ellie or John. I saw 2 familiar pairs of shoes neatly aligned near the front door as I was thinking about reducing Ellie's nap times in preparation for her starting elementary school. Even though I found it odd, I wanted to change into comfortable clothes, so first I headed to the bathroom to wash my hands. The sliding door connecting the hallway straight to the bathroom was open as usual. But I stopped before entering, unable to take another step forward. I saw scattered adult clothing and underwear. And from the bathroom, I could hear cheerful voices. They were unmistakably those of John and my meal, and even my own mother. At sight my confusion, I instinctively covered my mouth and managed not to scream. Could it really be John and the others in the bathroom? I couldn't believe it as I strained my ears to listen. I had never heard such a sweet, coquettish voice from the mothers, but when I thought about it, matching it with the shoes at the entrance, it was undeniable that those 3 were in the bathroom. Isn't Ellie off from kindergarten today? Where did you leave her?
I left her with my buddy. Don't worry, he has kids about the same age as Ellie, so it's easy to make excuses to Abby. And I've told him I've got an important online meeting I can't miss, so he understands that I'll be at home and might pick her up late. And Mitch lies to her fence. Oh, forget all that. Let's not waste our precious time together.
The 3 of them, unaware of my return, were having a great time. My mother, blushing like a maiden, and my mild pleading in a voice that was hard to believe was directed at her son. And John, seemingly satisfied, managing the 2. 3 voices I didn't want to hear echoed through my head in the small bathroom.
Ugh, disgusting.
Not overcome with nausea, I crumbled to the floor. I wasn't sure if the involuntary sound I made was due to my sarcastic feelings that the 3 of them, who were obviously enjoying themselves, wouldn't hear me, or whether I wanted them to realize was there. All I knew was that I felt so sick I was about to collapse. After a while, I managed to overcome my nausea by crouching down and covering my ears. Then, while being careful of the frosted glass used for the bathroom door, I managed to lock the exterior lock. Who would have imagined that the child safety lock I installed when Ellie started crawling would be used for such a thing? Then, I carefully took a tension rod from the entrance closet and used it. So gathered the scattered clothes. I also closed the sliding door facing the hallway so that the 3 of them would not be able to get out immediately if they noticed. As my fingertips, drained of blood and cold as ice, had not yet recovered, but a strange determination was rising. I couldn't let the 3 of them get away with this, but in my still confused head, I just couldn't think of anything, so I secured the sliding door with the road I had in my hand to buy some time. As when I entered the living room with a pile of clothes, I felt relief that I had passed the first hurdle without the 3 noticing. However, at the same time, the disgust was so great that even being in the same house was unbearable. Feeling dirty about the clothes I was holding, I dropped them all on the spot when I heard the annoying vibration sound. looking up, it was my mother-in-law's phone left on the couch, and the caller was none other than her husband. I answered the phone as if I was given divine help and explained the situation. As I sorted out the situation in my head, I tried to communicate this ongoing abnormal situation to my father-in-law as emotionless as possible, even as I continued to explain while suppressing. Also rising again, my father-in-law, still confused, said in a flat voice, "I'll be there as soon as possible," and hung up the phone. At having talked with him, I regained some composure and made a call to the next person on my phone. A few minutes after I finished the call and sat down in the hallway, the bathroom across the door was filled with a different kind of noise than before. The sound of the mother pounding on the busted door so hard they seemed to be breaking it, and John's voice demanding the door be unlocked after realizing the exterior lock was closed. I turned on the light on my side, and my silhouette, which could probably be clearly seen from the other side, made the three of them stop in their tracks. With an attempt at a calm voice, full of irony, I delivered the bad news.
You should have taken your time. All the family members except the girls will be here soon, so you'll be busy right away. Shouldn't you have enjoyed your time while you could?
After finishing the call with my father-in-law earlier, I had also contacted my father. My sister-in-law and her husband had been at the local park with their daughter. One of their mom friends who was also at the park with her child agreed to look after their daughter, bringing over to us. My father, who was livid over the phone to a terrifying degree, should also arrive soon.
Hold on, Abby, this is not what it looks like. I mean, we were a little sweaty and thought it would be more efficient to shower together, so it's not like that.
But beside John, who was making incomprehensible excuses, my mother-in-law and mother were emotionally shouting to unlock the door. Several minutes later, my father-in-law, sister-in-law, and her husband and my father arrived in that order. When I steeled myself and opened the bathroom door, the three of them were completely deflated and had shrunk down. Seeing their nakedness, my father-in-law nearly fainted, barely held up by my sister-in-law. My father was so angry, his blood vessels looked like they would burst, and immediately lunged at my mother. As my sister-in-law's husband, and I held onto my father to stop his punches, I truly felt how difficult it was to stay sane amidst this hellish scene. Once my sister-in-law's husband separated my father from the three, I put some energy into my weakening legs and demanded an explanation from John and the others. Given the situation, they started explaining without any pretense of hiding anything, and we were simply disillusioned by their humanity when we heard what they had to say. I could first become physically involved with my mother. This was a deeply rooted issue since the very fact that John had married me was because my mother had caught his interest. He'd never shown any signs of being attracted to my mother since our marriage, and had played the role of a good husband and father in front of me, all the while aggressively pursuing my mother behind my back. My mother, flattered by the advances of a man younger than her own daughter, started to enjoy her relationship with John, and eventually gave in to his physical demands. My mother-in-law, who accidentally became aware of their immoral games, instead of reproaching them, chose to join in. Apparently, her logic was, if it was okay for my mother, who was of the same age, then it was okay for her too, and in the end, it turned out to be so. Apparently, her logic was, if it was okay for my mother, who was the same age, then it was okay for her too, and in the end, it turned out to be so. After we received a house as a gift from my father-in-law, but John would invite either my mother or mother-in-law to our house for intercourse on the days when I was at work. He would invite one of them during the weekdays, while Ellie was at kindergarten and the other on holidays. At times, he would leave Ellie with his sister or a friend of his, and the three of them would have an affair, as in this case. Their relationship, which had lasted far longer than we could have imagined, had recently evolved into a ménage à trois, and we were rendered speechless when they told us they had been seeking this Braille about once a week.
But it's not what you think. We didn't intend to break up any relationships. We just had aligning interests. It was just a sort of stress relief, you know. She laughed.
My mother's words, uttered with a nonchalant laugh, shattered the silence. I remembered when I was still living at home with my parents. My mother had nonchalantly used my lipstick, which didn't suit her at all, and tossed my makeup bag back to me, saying she just wanted to try it out. She was always that kind of person, smiling while doing things I disliked as long as it pleased her. I had shocked ever since I heard the voices coming from the bathroom, but here I finally felt a rage that could be described as hatred. My mother-in-law similarly began speaking in a cheerful voice, also wearing a smile. That's right. We all have families, you know. I mean, I'm doing it with my real son. I have no further feelings about this. Don't worry, we'll stop this entirely. So, Abby, please don't make that scary face, right? Before I could respond to being addressed, her husband was the first to speak. What do you mean we all have families is? You're the ones who destroyed those. I've had enough of your consideration. I'm going to divorce you, so do whatever you want. Such a strong declaration of divorce was unthinkable from the father-in-law, who until a moment ago had been pale and leaning on his daughter for support. My father, who had been directing his anger at the three of them the whole time, followed suit as if he had been overtaken. Of course, I felt the same.
Congratulations, John. And we're also getting divorced, and now you three can get along as much as you like. Excuse my language, but just looking at you all makes you want to vomit, so I'm leaving. You don't ever need to show your faces to me again.
Each of them begged for forgiveness in their own words. They pleaded with my sister-in-law and her husband, the only neutral parties in the room, to mediate. But my Sile and her husband, who had been looking at them with open contempt, declared they wanted nothing to do with them and left, supporting her wobbling father.
Abby, I'll really do anything, just not divorce.
Seeing John reach out to me, my father finally threw a punch. With John's sudden stagger backwards, both my Mile and mother let out short screams. I took one last look at their frightened faces, declared that I would sue John for alimony and child support, and left. When I returned to my parents' house after picking up Ellie, I found a barrage of messages on my phone from the three of them. I didn't respond to any of them. After that, all three families ended in divorce. Ukmaymile and mother were penniless after being sued for alimony that they couldn't make up with the division of assets. Ismail and father had arranged for them to pay me alimony first, since I had a child, and I've had no contact with them ever since. Because we had all lived close to each other, word of the incident spread quickly in our neighborhood, full of acquaintances. Mabel, no longer able to bear being shunned by close friends and pointed at by mere acquaintances as a disgusting, moved far away. My mother set up residence in town due to her lingering attachment to John and my father, but soon everyone around her, including her relatives, came to know the cause of her divorce, and she found herself alone. No one was there to help her live alone for the first time at this age, and she is still living in loneliness. Anne was harshly rebuked and cut off by the friend who had been taking care of Ellie for him. It was only natural that the anger of the friend who had unknowingly been involved in the situation wouldn't die down, and John was devastated by being rejected by a friend of 10 years and feeling misunderstood. If only he had realized his mistake there, but he went on to tell a colleague at work, with whom he was close, about the incident. This led to the cause of the divorce spreading in the company, and John quickly lost his place there. He had just started going into the office again as remote work was lifted, and it must have been a tough environment for him. However, he had no savings since he had paid me alimony and couldn't quit his job as he needed to keep working to pay child support. I moved to a child-friendly apartment that is well equipped with soundproofing and is barrier-free, where my sister-in-law resides. My relationship with my sister-in-law and her husband remains strong. My father-in-law and father also come to our place often, and they have all been very supportive of Ellie's growth. Moreover, when our divorce was finalized, my father-in-law sold the house we were given and used that money to cover John's child support payments. That's the house, which had never been transferred to John's name due to gift tax implications, remained under my father-in-law's name, which made the process go smoothly. I had intended to receive child support for Ellie's sake, but my father-in-law's quick thinking really helped, since I didn't want any contact with John. From now on, I would like John to work hard to repay the child support that my father-in-law provided, of course, out of our sight. Since my girlfriend's pregnant, so I want a divorce.
We've been married for 3 years, and we finally bought our dream home. Just when we thought we'd start building a happy life together in our new house, this happened. Well, I was excited about our new home. I couldn't believe my husband was cheating on me behind my back. I won't let him live happily ever after with his affair partner. I'll get my revenge, no matter what it takes. My name is Sophia, and I'm 28 years old. I've been married to Brian for 3 years. From the start, both of our dreams were to buy our own home. We both worked hard, saved up, and even cleared the mortgage application. Finally, we bought our long-awaited new home. The house feels a bit too big for just the two of us, but we decided to buy it now to prepare for the future. They say on moving day, after we'd finished bringing in all our belongings, Brian turned to me and said, "Wow, we really pulled it off, didn't we, Sophia?"
You probably have to work overtime.
Brian, are you coming home late again today?
You probably have to work overtime.
At least a month after the move, lately Brian had been working late quite often. Is work keeping him busy? There were times when I felt like giving up, but it was our love that kept us going.
Being with him was genuinely joyful and comforting. You've been busy lately. Are you okay?
All right, just don't push yourself too hard, okay?
Even though Brian was coming home late, my days were filled with juggling work and household chores. Life was hectic, but I had a cozy home and a fulfilling job. I thought I was leading a somewhat satisfying life. Yes, that was until something happened. About 6 months after moving into the new house, I decided to bring up a topic with Brian.
Hey, Brian, don't you think it's about time we consider having a child?
That one's a child?
Yeah, we've been married for quite a while now, and we've even bought a house. What do you think?
Let me think.
After a brief pause, Brian gave me a rather vague response.
Well, having a child is a blessing. Do we really need to set a timeline?
That's true, but I'm almost 30, you know.
Having a kid at 30 isn't uncommon these days. Let's just leave it to timing.
Okay, got it.
I remember how much she used to say, I want kids soon after we got married.
Now, he seems less enthusiastic about it. Although Brian's reaction made me uneasy, I tried not to think too much about it. Then 1 week later, I came home from work to find Brian, who's usually home after me, already there. Surprised but happy, I rushed over to Brian.
Brian, you're home early today. Let's have a quiet dinner together. I'll start cooking now, so just hang tight for a bit.
Before that, can we talk?
What's up?
Can you sit over here?
Sensing a different atmosphere than usual, I sat down as instructed, but Brian seemed hesitant to speak. Growing impatient, I subtly urged Brian.
Hey, what's going on? Is something wrong?
I want divorce.
What? What did you just say?
I'm sorry, Sophia. I know it's selfish, but I just can't go on anymore.
Come on, Brian. You're joking, right? Divorce isn't something to joke about.
I'm not joking, I'm serious.
Why? Why would you suddenly say you want a divorce?
Oh, well.
What came out of Brian's mouth was unbelievable.
Only the one I've been seeing is pregnant, so I want a divorce.
Chloe, what are you talking about?
I can't abandon Chloe. I'll take responsibility and marry her.
I don't understand. Are you serious?
Why would I joke about something like this? Just please, let's end this.
I can't believe this.
I never thought my husband would cheat on me, especially when we've been so close. My hopes were shattered in an instant.
Since when? How long have you been seeing her?
About 6 months. No, maybe a year ago.
A whole year. So you've been involved with her even before we moved into this house?
The tears started to fall as I struggled to accept this harsh reality. Was it some sort of nightmare?
I'm really sorry. It's not your fault. It's all on me. Please don't cry. You know, I have days don't cry.
What are you talking about? How can you expect me not to cry when you drop something like this on me?
You're right.
I thought we would be happy together. I thought this home would get livelier when we have kids in the future, and now this.
Each time I spoke, the tears would not stop flowing.
I still love you, Sophia. But I have to take responsibility for the child too. I thought you would understand.
Hold on, wait, do you still have feelings for me?
Of course, the only person I love is you. That hasn't changed, but we don't have kids. Shouldn't we prioritize closed child in this case?
What was he talking about? If he loved me, he wouldn't have cheated in the first place, right? How can he claim to love me and still cheat, even getting the other woman pregnant? There was no way I could forgive such a convenient excuse. At that moment, a surge of anger, unlike anything I'd ever felt before, welled up inside me. Staying late at work, going in on days off. He was meeting Chloe during those times, wasn't he? Looking back, there were signs of cheating from the beginning. I just assumed he was busy with work. I wanted to slap the Mo who was praising him back then. But for now, I couldn't afford to get emotional.
This is all happening so fast. I can't really wrap my head around it. I need some time.
Yeah, makes sense.
For now, let me go back to my parents' house. I'll contact you once I've sorted out my feelings.
Yes, sure, got it.
Bye, then.
But with no other option, I checked into a hotel. Since I had the time, I decided to do some research on divorce. Then, I came across something astonishing. A guilty party can't request a divorce.
The guilty party can't request a divorce.
This is it. This is the way to go. And my spirits lifted, as if the cloud of despair never existed. At the same time, a strategy came to mind. For the next few days, I stayed at the hotel and crafted my plan while searching for a reliable lawyer. During that period, I received daily texts from Brian.
I don't want to leave you, but it's for the child. Please forgive my selfishness. You're my only love, Sophia. I need a decision soon. I can't keep ISO you sure thing, especially for the sake of the job.
Inking the child his priority, he was reluctantly divorcing his beloved wife.
I looked at his text with cold detachment. He was portraying himself as some tragic hero, and I simply replied, I need time to think.
After a week, I returned home. Brian ran up to greet me, shouting, and assuming I had decided on the divorce, he took the liberty to proceed with the conversations.
I was worried because you didn't come back for so long, but I knew you would understand.
People, I'm sorry for the delay. I finally sorted out my feelings. I need time to think.
That's fine. Don't worry about it. So let's get to, it's just divorce paperwork right away.
I'm not getting a divorce.
Brian's hand, holding the divorce papers, froze in midair.
What are you talking about, Sophia? That's a funny joke.
A joke? There's no way. I will not divorce. Not ever.
But why? Didn't you sort out your feelings?
I did. I took a full week to think and decided not to divorce.
You can't just do that.
He started to panic, probably assuming divorce would be straightforward. He must have already talked to Chloe about remarrying, as he quickly pressed me for a response.
Please, Sophia, just divorce me right away. Look, I even got the divorce papers.
Thanks for the effort, but I have no intention of divorcing.
I say, like, please, I'm begging you.
Looking down at Brian, who kept apologizing profusely, I finally spoke.
You know you were the one who cheated, right, Brian?
Okay?
Right. You'll admit that, won't you? You do realize who's at fault here, don't you?
Yeah, that was me.
And that makes things simple. The guilty party can't request a divorce, you know.
NW.
It's true. The guilty party can't initiate a divorce. It seemed he was unaware of that fact. Suddenly hit with unexpected information, he was at a loss for words. Sensing things had taken a terrible turn, he shifted to a more aggressive stance.
Wait a minute, I didn't know that.
Well, now you do. So we're done talking.
But this is a problem. I already planned to marry Chloe.
Give it up. I'm not getting a divorce.
What?
He continued to rant, but I ignored everything Brian had to say.
Finally, teary-eyed, he pleaded, please,
Add to that, I opened my mouth as if I'd been waiting for this moment.
And if you're going to go that far, I'll divorce you.
Chloe, are you serious?
I cautioned Brian, who looked at me with eyes shining in anticipation.
But there's a catch. I'll listen to whatever you say.
I'll listen to whatever you say.
Here are my terms. 1, all the savings we've accumulated since we got married, plus the savings from your bachelor days. 2, the money we get from selling this house, all of that will be given to me as compensation and property distribution in the divorce. Those are my terms.
I explained each point as if drilling it into him.
Firstly, all the savings we've accumulated since we got married, plus the savings from your bachelor days, and then the money we get from selling this house. All of that will be given to me as a compensation and property distribution in the divorce. Those are my terms.
What? Are you kidding me? That's impossible.
Brian's face turned beet red as he rejected the conditions. Of course he did. If Brian were to agree to these terms, he'd find himself not just broke, but shouldering a 30-year mortgage on a brand his new house all by himself. I resisted the urge to smirk and said to Brian calmly, "If you can't accept my terms, then no divorce."
What? Are you kidding me? No one would agree to this madness.
If it's not doable, it's fine. We just won't divorce.
After that, Chloe gave Brian a real earful. He was frantically running around to law offices trying to divorce me before his child was born, but apparently he was turned down by every firm, being told divorce initiated by the guilty party is not possible. Ultimately, Brian had no choice but to accept my terms. Just worn down to the bone, Brian finally spoke to me. "I can't take it anymore. I'll agree to all the conditions. Just give me a divorce."
Well, of course. If you keep your promises, I have no problem with divorcing.
Thank you, and as you said, I'll pay everything. Please don't claim alimony from anywhere in the divorce court.
I see. I'll think about it.
With that, Brian and I were officially divorced. Right after the divorce was finalized, I went ahead and claimed alimony from Chloe in the divorce court.
Hey, Sophia, what the heck is this? This isn't what we agreed on.
What do you mean not what we agreed on? What are you talking about?
Don't play dumb. We had an agreement that you wouldn't claim alimony from Chloe, right?
What are you talking about? I said I'd think about it, but I never said I wouldn't claim alimony.
Hey, what the hell does that mean?
Apparently, the two of them were planning to get by on Chloe's savings for the time being. But when I claimed alimony, even those savings were completely depleted.
That's low. Don't you have any compassion?
Is compassion, that's funny, to Brian's mistaken words. I responded clearly. Is the one who's low here is me? Let's not forget how we got here in the first place. You freaking cheated.
Even so, do you have to go this far? I've already paid you enough money.
So what? You think I should be grateful because you settled this with money. If I wanted to, I could ruin you socially. But I decided it's a waste of energy to do anything more for a lowlife like you. I get it. Never involve yourself with me again.
With that, I hung up the phone and blocked all communications from Brian. Finally, I had taken my revenge on the cheater. As for that new home we bought, it seems we could only get back about 60 of the initial price. All the loan payments now fell on Brian, and he had some money to pay them off. He's borrowing from relatives left and right, and still taking loans from financial institutions. In the end, it looks like he'll end up paying far more than the original mortgage. Despite having a child and increasing expenses, it seems that Brian and Chloe are fighting daily over money.
But weren't you not going to claim alimony for me and the divorce? What's going on?
I told you she tricked me.
You're the one who got fooled. How useless can you be? We're going to have more expenses now with this baby. What are you going to do?
Don't blame me for this, right? Like, I had a choice. Like, it's all because you kept nagging me to, a divorce.
What? Are you saying this is my fault? You should have just pulled off a smooth divorce without getting caught, like that was possible. Be realistic. You're just too incompetent.
Man, I should have never gotten a divorce in the first place. I'm
the one that should be saying that. I shouldn't have had a child with a man like you.
At this point, there's no denying that they brought this upon themselves. The newborn is innocent, but for those two who committed the terrible act of cheating, it's an appropriate outcome. As for BT, I've rented an apartment near my workplace and am now thoroughly enjoying my life as a single woman. I've been recognized for my accomplishments at work, and I got a raise, though I had to give up in my dream home and now have a divorce history. My life is far from over. From here on out, I want to forget all about my past married life and live a fulfilling life.
Well then, Mile, I guess the shed will have to do for your law.
Emmy laughed, pointing to the small shed in my backyard, suggesting it as my new room. Batilda, Emmy's mother, not only failed to correct her daughter, but joined her in laughing at me. I was with anger at their behavior. It was bad enough with Emmy alone. But now Matilda, an outsider, was conspiring to kick me out of my own home. I'd been tolerant of their antics up till now, and almost considerations had been continuously ignored. I've had enough, I thought, and I immediately called a moving company. So I'll be moving out, what? They still thought I was joking and kept smirking. I'm Jenna, 72 years old this year. After my son got married and moved out, I divorced my husband. Just living alone in this house, a part of the divorce settlement that was once full of family life, I cherished the peace. One day, I got a call from my son, Trevor.
He mentioned Emmy, his wife, wanted to give birth to, her in-law's place. Thayance.
Mom, I'm swamped with work and it's tough for Emmy alone.
Yes, of course. Make yourself at home.
Feeling slightly pressured, I agreed. There wasn't any inconvenience to me.
As little mother-in-law, it's been a while. Please take care of me from now on.
Yes, of course. Make yourself at home.
I decided to offer Emmy the room previously used by my son, considering her luggage. Initially, I tried to be thoughtful to Emmy, assuming she might find some inconveniences since she just moved. However, Emmy quickly showed her true colors, beginning to constantly antagonize me.
Isa tigsaktinst mude galju iteration. I made a veggie story for lunch. Emmy responded, "What, you expect me to eat something that plain?" I think.
I was hoping for something a bit more special. Emmy, retorted,
It seemed Emmy was never pleased with anything I did. From the day she moved in, she found things to nitpick. She'd complain about the meals I made, said my cleaning was too loud, and had various other grievances. Maybe it was just pregnancy mood swings, and tried to be patient. But when she told me my footsteps were too noisy, and that I should stay out of the room, it really threw me for a loop. Moreover, she used the excuse of feeling stressed in this house to go out for a walk and come back with a beer in hand. After ominous warnings about alcohol during pregnancy, she'd blame me for her stress and somehow turn it into my fault.
You really have a knack for stressing people out, don't you, mother-in-law?
I'm just doing what's normal, and I haven't even said much.
I'm so gang. I'm not in the wrong card again.
If you're so stressed out, it's not good for the baby. Maybe you should consider moving back to your parents' home.
Criticized me with a snarky tone. When I'd asked if I had done something wrong, it seemed she simply didn't like that I wasn't doing everything she wanted.
She never helped with meals or chores, and acted like she was some sort of princess who deserved to be waited on hand and foot. Of course, I wasn't going to entertain such behavior, which only seemed to escalate her antagonism.
Oh, great. It's sad for the grandchild to have a stress-inducing grandmother.
Okay, Trevor, about Emmy.
Hey, about that. Try to get along, okay?
My son Trevor had a hectic work schedule and could only visit us on weekends. So I thought he should spend his brief stays bonding with Emmy. However, as Emmy's attitude got worse and worse, I couldn't stand it anymore and approached Trevor for advice. But it seems that Emmy had already painted me in a bad light to him, and Trevor's response was pretty cold.
Emmy's pregnant, let her do what she wants sometimes.
You mean it's kind to serve alcohol to a pregnant woman?
I didn't say that, just occasionally cook something she craves.
To the clueless mother-in-law perhaps suggest to her son, Trevor, to say that to me. Yet Emmy criticized the meal I'd prepared, considering her pregnant state as subpar. She completely ignored my consideration for her. Even when I explained that it was impossible if she didn't try to meet halfway, Trevor wouldn't listen.
Anyway, Emmy's belly is big now. Don't stress her out.
Trevor, please listen to my side too.
What's your problem with Emmy? Have you become a spiteful mother-in-law?
But to Trevor, Emmy's behavior probably seemed like some kind of pregnancy blues. In fact, Emmy was only calm when Trevor was around. There was no way I could get along with Emmy, who clearly looked down on me with malice and kept trying to boss me around. Yet I was flabbergasted by Trevor's attitude, who, consumed by his work, wouldn't listen and shifted the blame onto me. Taking advantage of the fact that Trevor rarely visited due to his job, Emmy's actions, seemingly designed to trample over my goodwill, increased.
Neil, there's some baby items I like.
Really?
They're a bit expensive from a brand, but maybe you can buy them as a gift from you.
What Emmy showed me was a catalog for a baby stroller and crib that cost a whopping $1,000. Though I hesitated at the price, I agreed since it was a gift. They offered to buy them after the baby was born, but she insisted on getting them immediately, so I ordered them online as she requested. But I shouldn't have let her manipulate me like that.
No, that's not what happened. Emmy showed me something on her phone with a cheeky grin, and,
At first, I didn't get it, but it looked like Emmy had sold the baby items I bought online to someone else.
Why would you do that? They weren't the things you said you wanted.
well, you got the wrong items, didn't you? Please get of it right next time from my cute grandchild, okay?
Not even checking what was inside the delivered box, Emmy shamelessly said I got the wrong items and laughed.
I sold them for a good price. What should I buy with this money?
If she had received the wrong items, she could have simply returned them. It seemed she just wanted to annoy me, and she made it a point to let me know that. The final straw came about a month after she moved into her home.
Hello, I'll be coming in now.
What? Why the sudden visit?
Executions, I was relaxing in the living room after lunch when the doorbell rang out of the blue. I wasn't expecting any visitors. When I opened the door, there stood Matilda, Emmy's mother.
Emmy told me she felt lonely and needed some company for the birth.
Oh, I see. I'm sorry, Emmy didn't mention anything.
Of course she didn't.
Matilda gave me a condescending smile and waved cheerfully to Emmy, who emerged from the back of the room. Without wasting any time, Emmy turned to me and made a shocking statement. Sure, Emmy, with a grin, suggested that I use the little shed in our backyard as my room. Matilda didn't reprimand Emmy for the remark, but just laughed along with her. I don't want someone who's mean me during such an important time as my daughter's birth.
Well then, mother-in-law, since you're in the way, how about staying in the shed, excuse me?
I don't want someone who's mean near me during such an important time as my daughter's birth.
Well, then shouldn't she just stay at your place?
See, this is the kind of thing mother-in-law says.
I don't know how they justified it, but Matilda just looked at me with pity and walked right into the house. I was about to complain about trespassing, but the two of them just ignored me and went on chatting, heading into the living room. I was furious at their audacity. If it was just Emmy, maybe, but even Matilda had the nerve to barge into someone else's home and without a greeting, kick out the homeowner in such state. Having had enough of these two who wouldn't listen to a word, I said I defiantly grabbed my cell phone and called a moving company. So, I guess I'm moving out.
What you knew. It's...
They seemed to think I was joking, still laughing dismissively. But soon enough to my luck, I managed to find a moving company. Seeing the moving truck pull up, they panicked and tried to stop me. Wait a minute, mother-in-law. What are you thinking? Well, you said the nasty mother-in-law is a bother, right? Where do you think you're going? Isn't this unreasonable? Maybe reflect. Think on your own actions first. It's on your own actions first. In no time, a group of workers packed up everything in the house and started loading it into the truck. The TV, sofa, furniture, electronics. Everything from the living room that Emmy had treated like her own disappeared right before our eyes. Watching the house get emptied out, the two just stood there stunned. How are we supposed to live here with no furniture? Well, remember, I'm the nasty mother-in-law, so I don't really care. Is this how you treat pregnant women? Considering how you've treated me, I wouldn't call it human behavior. Anyway, I'll leave us to you two, leaving a still loudly complaining Emmy and her gang behind. I headed towards the hotel. The luggage I had hastily removed was temporarily taken care of by the storage service, so I decided to enjoy a rare day out. For a while, my phone was flooded with calls from Emmy, but I ignored them, relishing my moment of freedom. After a relaxing dinner, I finally took a call from Trevor, who seemed to have finished his work.
Hey, Mom, what's the deal? I think...
Really, Trevor? I don't remember doing anything to deserve being yelled at over the phone.
It seems like Trevor had also heard some twisted version of events from Emmy. I felt him in about Emmy's mother unexpectedly barging into our home, and now they tried to kick me out into the shed. But Trevor brushed off my side of the story, insinuating that it was some fiction spun up by my cunning daughter-in-law. I felt a headache coming on dealing with Trevor's baseless accusations, cutting him off as he went on about not understanding why I'd leave Emmy with her family. I said, looking at something I prepared earlier.
If you're so sure about all this, you have some evidence to back it up, right?
Oh, what evidence? What are you talking about?
You can't possibly make your mother the villain without a shred of proof, right?
All I need is Emmy's word.
That's ridiculous. I was ostensibly kicked out based on such ludicrous claims.
I sternly rebuked Trevor and told him to come to our house over the weekend. Intent on confronting those who painted me as the convenient villain, I decided to return home the following Sunday.
Oh, have you come back so soon, with regrets?
As I approached our eerily quiet house, Emmy, acting like she owned the place, greeted me with her typical audacity. I wondered how she was managing in our home, stripped of all its furniture. It appeared that Trevor had brought in bedding and other items by car from his house.
You give back the furniture and appliances now, maybe I'll forgive you.
Why should I give back what was originally mine?
Showing no signs of remorse, I called over Trevor and Matilda, producing an item I had taken from our home. It was my personal video camera, which had been secretly recording Emmy's usual behavior.
Oh, what's that?
Perhaps that you can see it's a video camera. It captured your usual attitude quite well.
Mother-in-law, are you really gonna make a pregnant woman eat such poor food again today?
It's a meal considering the nutrients a pregnant woman needs. I wouldn't recommend the fried chicken you always buy from the grocery store.
Still, I wish you'd let me eat something better.
At first, it was just bratty conversation. But as it continued, both Trevor and Matilda were glued to the screen, watching Emmy's deteriorating behavior.
Is Trevor always working because he's an incompetent son who can't do his job?
How can you talk about your own husband that way?
But is that true?
So engrossed in attacking me, there were scenes where Emmy didn't hesitate to hurl verbal abuse at Trevor. Another scene showed her complaining about Trevor on the phone in the living room. Or enough for me to hear.
Desperately tried to stop the video, but Trevor intervened. Cornered by Trevor, she became, flustered.
Peace. What the hell is this, Emmy? Didn't you say my mom was bullying you?
Oh, this isn't what it looks like.
What's different? How could you say such terrible things?
While Emmy, cornered by the two, was searching for a way out, I continued to play the recording. It clearly captured the conversation about the $1,000 baby items she had previously forced me to buy. Unable to stand it anymore, Emmy lunged at me, screaming loudly, "Why are you doing this? Why did you even record this? This is a breach of my privacy."
Listen, but, I mean, you lied. You told me mom was taking the money I gave you. What did you really use it for?
I can't believe this. I came here to protect you from your mean mother-in-law, and you do this?
I keep telling you, it's not like that. I haven't done anything wrong.
As they kept arguing back and forth, each blaming the other, tired of watching them justify themselves and hurl insults at each other, I raised my voice as loud as the three of them combined.
Enough is enough.
What's going on, Mom?
This isn't about what's going on. You come into someone's house, do as you please, and without evidence you accuse them. Shouldn't you apologize to me first before defending yourself?
Mrs. Jenna, I truly apologize.
Why should I, if you think you did nothing wrong, should I let others watch this and decide?
If you think you did nothing wrong, should I let others watch this and decide?
I apologize, so...
Eccles, watching the three of them finally understand the truth and realize their mistakes, I felt a sense of relief. A few days after the confrontation, I heard that Emmy decided to give birth at her parents' house. Apparently, Matilda had only heard Emmy's side of the story and was furious, saying, my daughter has embarrassed me. Actually, as a result, Emmy wasn't pampered like she was at my place and was going through a tough time with her pregnancy. As for Trevor, he was furious at Emmy for deceiving him and was considering divorce.
I'm thinking of getting a divorce and living with my kid. What do you think?
What do I think? First off, how do you plan on managing that with your busy work schedule?
I was thinking Mom could help out a bit. It's so close to there.
You've gotta be joking. That's a hard no from me.
Trevor, seeming to have never expected my refusal, persisted.
It's your cute grandchild, you know?
I held my head in exasperation at Trevor's convenient arguments.
You did call me the nasty mill, right? Was with such a grandmother, You'd be worried about what she might do to her grandchild, wouldn't you?
Seeing my intentional spite, Trevor realized any further arguments would be in vain and backed down. With the matter settled, I promptly ended the call. It's true, the child who's about to be born isn't to blame, but I'm under no obligation to care for them. Isetrok to decline promptly, not wanting to get involved with Trevor or Emmy again because of the grandchild.
However, maybe I could send some sort of gift.
With the $1,000 I was made to spend on baby items by Emmy was later refunded to me by Mathilda. At that money, I decided to replace the sofa that Emmy had taken over, which had left a bitter memory. After getting rid of some furniture and cleaning up, I returned to my home, now refreshed and back to the peaceful life I used to have. Even though I was sending them, hearing it from the person who was shaking was, "Wow, what is this vegetable? I've never tasted anything like it before, and it's amazing."
Oh wow, what is this vegetable? I've never tasted anything like it before, and it's amazing.
These are the vegetables I've been sending, the ones I've poured my heart into growing. Yet my son says he's eating them for the first time today. I glanced at my daughter-in-law, and she was clearly acting suspicious. She must know something about my vegetables. I'm Isabella, a 62-year-old housewife. My husband Cedric took early retirement and switched careers to farming, leasing some land from a friend. We live a quiet life, just the two of us running our small farm. Our son David got a job in the city after graduating from college and is now married. He's a dad supporting a family with a 5-year-old child. Although we can't visit often due to the distance, knowing we're eating the same vegetables lessens the loneliness. I used to have a small garden, but farming is a whole different ballgame. I used to have a small vegetable garden at home. Actually, I was worried that my experience wouldn't be enough for full-scale farming. But my spouse and I found it to be a good fit, and we have been quite successful, especially considering we switched careers later in life. Our vegetable farming has been a hit, and now we get inquiries from all over asking to purchase our produce. We've always made it a priority to send freshly harvested vegetables to our son, daughter-in-law, and grandchildren. We send more whenever they ask. Unfortunately, I never get to hear directly from my son about how he feels about the vegetables. She even said her husband was eager for his co-workers to try them, so how could I say no? We usually don't take large orders because it's just the two of us farming, but that year was a poor harvest, so we ended up sending a large shipment, turning down other customers. A few days later, my spouse and I went to the city to visit our daughter. She's single and busy with her career, which seems to be her passion. She mentioned that she lives near our son and suggested we visit since we finished our errands early. Ikshin, I was given detailed instructions on how to get from my daughter's home to my son's and his wife's house. Being it was for my son, I happily agreed to send more.
Thank you for the delicious vegetables. They're a big help. We're so lucky to have such tasty produce.
But her thank you always sounds the same, and I wish I could hear more details about what they like.
Vegetables you sent are so delicious that we end up eating too much.
It's nice to hear they enjoy them that much.
Could you send extra? My husband's coworkers would love to try them.
When we arrived, we were greeted by David and our grandson Edwards.
Are you off work today?
No, I'm just working remotely. I've been doing that for years.
This was surprising because Stephanie had told us he was swamped with work. What's going on?
Would you like something to drink or maybe a snack?
David had moved out after high school, so he should be able to handle basic chores. But he seemed exceptionally skilled.
I started switching to remote work when I found out my wife was pregnant, so I can handle all household chores and even have some specialty dishes. I like to experiment with, the cooking when I have time.
And then our grandson chimed in, Dad's cooking is delicious.
Wait, Dad's cooking? Where's Stephanie? She wasn't around. And I wondered if she had gone shopping since we arrived unannounced.
Oh, she's been on a trip with her friends since yesterday.
What?
Turns out, my daughter-in-law's travels aren't a new thing.
Being an understanding husband is good, but giving too much freedom can be a problem.
I mentioned that their young child must miss his mom, and David laughs. If it works for our family, it's fun.
If they're okay with it, who are we to complain? I decide not to interfere anymore.
So since he's not here, why don't you stay over?
But when I was a little confused, he said, "You're gonna stay the night." Wow.
As I hesitate, my grandchild joyfully pulls my hand. Seeing this, I feel like taking up my son's offer. Plus, who knows when we'll see them again. So we decide to stay the night. David's cooking is surprisingly elaborate and tasty. He even made it less salty, considering our taste. But something feels off when I try the side dish. It's not the vegetables we sent. Worst company sent a lot just a few days ago. Even if he shared some with his coworkers, there should be plenty left for the family. My grandson is 5 years old, too young to be able to eat his fill. So what does that mean?
I ask, did the vegetables we sent not suffice?
As rules, my wife usually buys them from the local supermarket. I didn't know you sent any.
That's strange. You said you wanted to share them with your coworkers, right?
No, I don't really talk to my coworkers much since I work remotely.
Something's not adding up. I realized the vegetables we sent didn't go to his coworkers, so where did they go? Are we falling prey to the current trend of resale? I carefully asked David.
But if you're working remotely, don't you notice her taking calls?
Actually, she's often out. She calls from her mobile, not the landline, right?
That reminds me of a recent conversation. I recall hearing background noise during our calls. You can always tell when a phone call is coming from outside the house. There's a certain background noise.
So come to think of it, the last time we talked, well, it was a few months ago. I heard a train in the background.
Our son's house isn't near a train station, and there are no tracks nearby. Connection, I sense my son wants to say something, but he's hesitant because his child is around.
My husband picks up on it and says, "Let's go play outside after we eat," taking the grandchild away from the table.
My son exhales lightly and starts. So, the truth is, he had said before that his wife's free-spirited behavior was what made their home life work. But that was a lie. Ever since he shifted mostly to remote work, she's been spending more nights out. At first, he didn't question her trips with friends until he ran into one of those supposed friends downtown. He recognized her from the photos. He had been shown as proof of their trips together, so David is sure he's not mistaken. He didn't confront her then, thinking plans could change. But when she came home, she told tales of a fun trip with the friend he had just seen. He's starting to suspect she's not with a friend, but it's just another man. It's in other words, he suspects his wife is cheating. It was a shocking confession. We decide to delay our return home to wait for our daughter-in-law, who's coming back tomorrow. Stephanie comes home, clearly in high spirits. She had a great trip, it seems. But when she sees us sitting in the living room, she's visibly startled.
What, Isabella, Cedric? Why are you here?
She was clearly upset.
Ava quickly says, "Would you join us for dinner tonight?" As if it's a given.
Of course, ha ha ha.
She agrees, but her behavior is suspicious. She's probably gone from cloud 9 to rock bottom. Got the dinner menu that came out was decent, and I could see that it wasn't just buying deli food and plating it up. The dinner she serves is elaborate, not just takeout arranged on plates. She's probably overcompensating for something.
Mom's cooking is so fancy today.
Kids are honest.
Stephanie hesitates, then says to her child, "It's because Isabella and Cedric are here."
Well, then you should stay forever?
We see the color drain from her face.
Don't be selfish. They have their own lives. She scolds, but when my husband jokes,
AB will stay another night. Our grandchild is thrilled, and Stephanie turns pale.
It's clear she wants us gone, but we pretend not to notice. We notice the side dish is full of vegetables. The color, the texture, the flavor that deepens as you chew, it's undoubtedly the produce we grew ourselves. Yesterday it was different vegetables, but today it's the ones we sent. She must have been hiding them, sharing them only with herself. But it's too much for one person to eat, and where could she hide that much in this house? Between our son's story and these vegetables, something is definitely off.
Our son and grandchild taste the side dish and both exclaim, "This is delicious."
Lottie, only Stephanie, our daughter-in-law, seemed momentarily flustered. She kept her eyes down and focused on eating another side dish. It's as if she's saying, "Don't bring up the vegetables." When we finished eating and prepared to leave, she looked visibly relieved. We offer to stay the night, citing our son's late work hours, but we decide to leave, concerned about the produce. We offer to stay the night, citing our son's late work hours, but we decide to leave, concerned about the produce. We need to investigate this as soon as possible, in place of our son. The next day, we hire a private investigator to look into Stephanie's activities. The results come back sooner than expected. As our son suspected, Stephanie was having an affair with a married man. But it's not just any married man. He works for a company that's a rival to our son's employer. Not only was she having an affair, but she was also leaking information. In other words, confidential information our son was handling was being passed to the rival company. The vegetables we sent in large quantities were being distributed within her lover's company. but claiming they were from her parents. What was sent to our son's home was given to her lover. We weren't sending it for free to the person my wife was having an affair with or to his company. I had no idea that vegetables from a bad year, which I collected after apologizing and understanding my customers, would be used for something like this. We immediately shared the facts with David, our son. He's shocked to learn that his work information was compromised and takes immediate action. The affair concerns not just our son, but us as well. We pick a time when we're sure Stephanie will be with her lover and confront them with documents in hand.
You can't just leak work information. I could get fired, and who's gonna suffer when the money stops coming in? You.
It was just a whim. He said it was great information, and he took me on trips because he got promoted thanks to me.
She admits it, but doesn't grasp the gravity of the situation.
That's it, we're getting a divorce.
Sexano, please reconsider. I'll apologize until you forgive me. I'll be a good wife, a good mother.
You want a man who's climbing the corporate ladder, let him support you.
That's not possible.
The man is also married.
Furthermore, our son Dave will take custody of the child. He told Stephanie that she can't see the child until they are an adult. He set strict conditions saying she shouldn't even contact them. Plus, the child wants to see her after reaching adulthood.
Wait, this child isn't just yours. I carried him, I love him. I want to maintain some relationship with our son for the sake of the child.
How can you say that? You claim to love the child, you have an affair. Didn't you think it would be cruel for the child to be raised by a mother who cheats?
Well, that's a natural conclusion. In the end, none of Stephanie's arguments hold water. We also demand compensation from her for the vegetables I sent to my son's family, and for the ones she distributed to her lover's company. Surely, this leads to her lover's wife finding out, and Stephanie gets slapped with another demand for compensation. Stephanie, who had been a housewife, can't afford to pay. She turns to her parents for help, but they don't give her a single dollar. Neither we nor our son know what's become of Stephanie, who had little experience in the real world. David has resigned from his job over the leak. His company highly valued his work and character and didn't hold him responsible for the leak. Who would ever think their own spouse would be having an affair with an employee of a rival company and leaking work information? Though the company offered to help him find another job, my son, who has a strong sense of responsibility, decided to pursue something he's always wanted to do. He sold the house he was living in and moved closer to where he grew up. He started his own business there. He's using his past experience to make it on his own. His office is adjacent to his home, so he can work while taking care of his child. Still, he occasionally asks us to watch the child for him. When he has a day off, he brings our grandchild to help us with the farming, and so our family and our son's family are cooperating and enjoying our days. I had accumulated daily fatigue and was just taking a brief nap when my husband came home and was furious at the sight of me.
Just a part-timer and you're napping? Get a hold of yourself.
I didn't mean to. I just...
Oh, housewives should sleep more than 3 hours. We sleep a minute over, we're getting a divorce.
He must have thought he'd won the argument, smirking at me. But I'm not a weak person who backs down from such things. I'll use his words against him and turn the situation around. My name is Rachel Williams, and I'm 28. After marriage, I quit my job to become a full-time housewife, supporting my husband. My husband, Jack, is 32. He's an engineer at a company and was my former boss. We originally knew each other from work, and he was the one who approached me. Working for better or worse, my husband can be very strict. Even when we were dating, I was often scolded. He distinguishes between public and private and doesn't let personal feelings interfere. It was his idea for me to become a full-time housewife. When I was contemplating continuing my work after marriage, he said, "I want you to take care of the house. I'll be the one to work and earn for us."
I want the house to be clean when I come back. I'm not good at housework, so I want to ask you, Rachel.
I see. If that's what you want, Jack, I guess I'll give being a housewife a shot.
Yeah, please do. I can take care of the income on my own.
And so I became a full-time housewife, just as my husband wanted. I was never particularly good at housework, but I didn't dislike it. After a year of marriage, I've come to realize something. Being a full-time housewife is surprisingly unbusy. Typically, the picture of a housewife is someone who's so consumed by chores that they barely have any time for themselves. But in reality, I'm done with all my housework by noon. Living in a single-story house might be a factor, as it's not as large as a 2-story home, thus less cleaning. Additionally, we don't have any kids, so it doesn't take that much time. Preparing meals is simple enough. Once I make breakfast and dinner for both of us, I just whip up something quick for my lunch. Laundry isn't a daily task, which inevitably leaves me with free time. Another boring day. I sigh softly as I watch daytime TV. I could go out, but I don't have an income of my own, so shopping isn't exactly guilt-free. Meeting up with friends is difficult too, because everyone works during weekdays. On top of that, we live far from the town, out in the countryside. I would have preferred to live in an apartment near my workplace, but my husband Jack wanted our own home, so we ended up buying a newly built house in this remote rural area. It's fields as far as the eye can see, with the neighbors' houses quite far apart. Making new friends in such a place is next to impossible. Nonetheless, I have to remember that it was Jack who took out a mortgage to buy this house for us. As a full-time housewife, I'm not in a position to complain. I started doing this diet dance I saw on TV out of sheer boredom. It's simply dancing along to the videos they show. It works out the whole body, and my figure is becoming more toned with every session. I initially started it so as not to disappoint Jack after our marriage, but it has since become a daily routine. Once I finish my diet dance, I find myself with nothing to do. This leaves me with way too much time on my hands. I couldn't stand it anymore and decided to discuss it with Jack when he came home. "Hey Jack, can we talk?"
What's up?
You know, I've been thinking, a year into our marriage, being a full-time housewife leaves me with a lot of free time. I was thinking maybe I could start working a bit.
Guess what? No, I want you to take care of the house perfectly.
I understand that, and I'll continue doing the housework properly, but it feels like a waste to just sit at home doing nothing. My husband Jack seemed discontent with the request, but I continued to explain my intentions to him nonetheless. Please, Jack, even if it's just a part-time job for a few hours, can't I work a little?
But what part-time jobs are even around here?
The bakery nearby is hiring part-timers. It's just about 4 hours in the afternoon, and it won't interfere with the housework, okay?
Alright, but under one condition, don't slack off with the housework, okay?
Sure, thank you, Jack. With his permission, I went to the bakery in our neighborhood the next day. They seemed to be short-staffed, and I was hired on the spot. That's how I started working outside again after a year. There was a pile of unfamiliar tasks I had to learn, but I was more than happy to be able to work. Maybe because my daily life became a bit tougher, I started sleeping more soundly than before. Then one day, my usual 5 p.m. part-time shift ended up being extended until 6 p.m. I rushed home and started preparing dinner, but Jack got home before it was ready.
I'm home. What's going on? Is dinner not ready yet?
I'm sorry, I just got home myself. We had a lot of customers today, so I had to stay until 6 p.m.
Overtime.
But it'll be ready soon. Jack, please have a seat and wait. Then I heard Jack's loud TSK. I stopped my hands in surprise and saw him glaring at me with a fierce expression. Jack,
This is exactly why I told you to stay a housewife. I knew from the start that the housework would be neglected.
wait a minute. Today was just a one-time thing.
Don't talk back, didn't we promise that, you won't slack off on the housework? Despite that, what's with this situation? Are you mocking me?
I'm not trying to mock you. I was taken aback by Jack's expression, which I had never seen before, and my voice trembled in fear. I was so scared that my legs gave out, and I dropped the spatula. Regardless of my state, he continued to yell at me.
If something like this happens again, I'm gonna make you quit your part-time job, got it? If you're fine with that, then go ahead. I mean it.
Also leaving those words behind, I hurriedly left, saying, I'm going out to eat. Released from my anxiety, my tears began to flow uncontrollably. Why did he get so angry just because I was a bit late? That it was just because work ran late today. I mulled over my actions, but I could not comprehend his anger. From that day on, Jack's patriarchal behavior escalated. He treated me as if I was a maid, saying things like, hey, when will you finally get it together and make a decent packed lunch? To disgusting. I'm sorry, but I made the fried chicken you like today.
How many times have I told you not to talk back? Because of your terrible lunches, I've been forced to buy convenient store meals for lunch. I'll deduct that from next month's household expenses. Got it. What? Are you saying we should divorce now?
Sorry, I'm sorry. Living through this hell, the word divorces gradually started to flicker in my mind, but I was just a part-timer with no life skills. I could hardly muster the courage to take the step towards this divorce. I gradually got used to waking up at 5 a.m. and quietly cleaning the house and preparing breakfast. I finished all the housework and dinner preparation in the morning, then headed to my part-time job in the afternoon. Those were my days. Of course, if you keep up with this routine, fatigue builds up. In my case, the emotional exhaustion was more severe than the physical.
Rachel, you seem tired lately. Are you okay? You look pale. It's slow today. Why don't you clock out early here? Take one of the freshly baked breads we just made as a thank you for your hard work.
Just grateful for the manager's generosity, I decided to leave work early. As soon as I got home, I surrendered to my fatigue and collapsed onto the couch. A few hours later, I was jolted awake by my husband, Jack, shouting furiously with a demonic expression on his face. Jolted awake, I found my husband, Jack, shouting furiously with a demonic expression on his face. When I managed to sit up and look at the clock, it was already past 6:30 in the evening. I felt the blood drain from my body, and the warning signs flashed in my mind.
You said, do you ever get tired of making me angry?
I replied, I-26. I'm sorry.
Yes, you think you can take a nap because you're just a part-time worker, getting a little too comfortable, aren't we?
I said. It's not like I was trying to...
You said, don't talk back to me, a housewife should sleep for over 3 hours in the afternoon. He continued to glare down at me with his terrifying expression.
As I fell silent, he asked, Why are you silent? It's your own laziness that's the problem, isn't it? I replied, I'm all at...
He said it's a luxury for a housewife to sleep more than 3 hours. He continued, if you ever exceed a minute of those 3 hours, I'll divorce you in a heartbeat. Got it?
I said, huh.
He said it's not a, aha. You're living a comfortable life because of me, so just shut up and listen. You're so useless.
That's when it happened, when the frustration that had been building up inside me exploded. Why hadn't I realized this before? This life, I was only torturing myself. I'm done being a slave. I'm going to end this life as quickly as possible. After the perfect revenge, of course. Subterulence, I whispered softly in front of him. I understand, but remember, no complaints no matter what happens, okay?
Yes, well, what do you mean, no matter what happens? At most, you'll probably, collapse from lack of sleep. He laughed smugly.
I said, We'll see. Anyway, I'll stick to the 3-hour sleep rule, so don't worry.
He said it'll be interesting to see how long you can keep this up. You'll probably end up divorced soon.
My husband laughed smugly. But for me, divorce was already a done deal. Now, the only thing left was to take my revenge on him. That was the only thing on my mind. When I woke up, it was 2 in the morning. Since I fell asleep at 11 p.m., it was exactly 3 hours of sleep. When I turned on the light in the bedroom, my soundly sleeping husband groaned and covered himself with the blanket. Ignoring him, I took out the vacuum cleaner and started cleaning the room.
He was surprised by the sound and yelled, Hey, what are you doing? Do you even know what time it is?
I said, it's just about past 2 a.m.
He said, Are you nuts? Why the hell are you vacuuming at this ungodly hour? Show some common sense. He covered himself with the blanket again.
Once I made sure he had fallen back asleep, I headed to the living room next door. Turning on the TV as loudly as I could, I started playing a high-energy aerobics workout video. Dancing along with the video, I could hear loud stomping from the next room. The red-faced Jack was glaring at me, and once again he yelled at me. I said, "Oh, sorry. I'll lower the volume a bit."
He yelled, "That's not the point. Your dancing noise is resonating and it's too loud. Just be quiet and sleep."
I replied, "Well, I can't do that, because I already slept for 3 hours today."
"But," he said, "anyway, it's disturbing the neighbors."
He said, "Don't worry about it. After all, we live in the countryside and there aren't any houses around, are there?" Huh. Just from that day on, I began to wake up at 2 a.m. every night to do all the housework. From 2 a.m., I ran the vacuum cleaner, the washing machine, and everything else. The spare time was for dancing exercises. Continuing this routine, Jack finally cried out a week later.
He begged, Abigail, "I beg you, give me a break. I have an important meeting first thing in the morning."
I asked, "But I have to do the housework."
He pleaded, "Just sleep, please."
I said, "But I've already slept for 3 hours. That's the rule, right? Oh, should I make some coffee to avoid getting sleepy?" I offered, "I'll start from grinding the beans in the mill. Want to join?"
Said, "Please spare me. I beg you, I'm on my knees."
For the first time, Jack bowed his head to me. Looking down at him, I coldly retorted. I said, "Is that all you wanted to say?"
He replied, "So?"
I said, "You only bow your head for your own sake? Nothing else to say?"
He said, "No, I just want a good night's sleep for tomorrow's meeting."
At his words, love froze from the bottom of my heart. I thought he didn't think anything of the harsh words he had been saying to me. I palmady supportsies. I said, you want to sleep in, you push housework onto others and then tell them not to sleep more than 3 hours. All you intend to sleep as much as you want." I continued, "Don't be ridiculous. What do you think I've been feeling all this time, living like this?" I added, "You who can't even understand people's feelings have no right to marry and support someone."
He said, "Hey, calm down. I didn't mean to. I didn't mean to."
I responded, "You've said it before, haven't you?" About the agent Duix and the cure, I said, "Don't make excuses. I'll throw those words right back at you." I decided instead of making excuses, how about just saying, "I'm sorry." I declared, "I'm completely fed up with you. You're such a jerk. I'll divorce you." I pulled out the divorce papers from his bag and filled them out on the spot. The next morning, I submitted the divorce papers at the city hall and packed my things to return to my parents' home. And so I put an end to my relationship with my dominating husband. Afterwards, Jack's life was completely changed by my absence. The house became a mess, and even his work suits became disheveled. He began eating out for every meal and soon fell ill. He started going to work looking worse every day, and people at work began distancing themselves from him.
"Hey, did you hear that Jack got dumped by his wife?" "That's plausible. Jack is harsh to others, but super lenient with himself and not very competent either."
Brit gossip began to spread, and it became increasingly uncomfortable for him at work. I heard he's been absent without permission a lot lately. If things keep going this way, it'll only be a matter of time before he gets fired. I'm now commuting from my parents' house to the bakery. When I told the manager about my divorce, he asked me to work full-time. This salary is good, so I plan to continue working there for a while. I will live my life to the fullest from here on out.